Alright, so this session we're going to go over more of the technical side of things, and I presume the crowd we have here, everyone here is going to be at least getting their hands into managing the devices, managing or helping out with these student accounts, I presume, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So just as with my last presentation, I have just a quick short video I want to start off with to get us moving along here. So I'll go ahead and get that prepped up. Let it buffer here really quickly. And I presume we're blocking YouTube because of how much internet pipe it eats up, correct? Okay. Yeah, that's the problem at our District 207, actually. It's funny because we do allow YouTube. Actually, our district policy does allow the website. But I think the last I checked, 60% of our internet usage is just YouTube. So it's astonishing. I mean, we're lucky to have such a large pipe that we do across all three schools. I think we have about a 100 or 150 megabit line. But still, I mean, you increase the pipe, they just use it that much more. So it's an ever constant battle with this website. So if we block YouTube, we won't have to keep increasing our internet pipe.
Life has become pretty complicated for IT managers and employees. Everybody juggles a fleet of different devices and operating systems, all running their own local applications and requiring endless cycles of patches and upgrades. All this complexity adds up to constant maintenance, less security, much higher costs, and headaches for users. Google realized that a better solution would be to make the web the platform for all these applications, so that they would simply work on any device running a browser. So we created Chromebooks, running the first operating system built and optimized for the web. Chromebooks securely access all of their data and apps on the web, which means manually configuring, updating, patching, migrating data.
Thank you.
Data and securing PCs becomes a thing of the past. An entire fleet of Chromebooks is simple to configure and manage centrally through the web. Once configured, users have the applications and settings they need as soon as they log on, wherever they are. And since data and apps aren't stored on the PC, a lost computer won't mean the loss of any vital company data. Chromebooks are also fundamentally more secure than traditional PCs, because they run in a sandboxed environment that restricts viruses and malware from reaching the operating system. And every time the Chromebook starts, it runs a process called verified boot that ensures the operating system has not been tampered with or corrupted. Most importantly, Chromebooks make users happier and more productive by getting them on the web quickly, where they can access apps, documents, and settings using the familiar Chrome browser. And thanks to up to 8 hours of battery life, Wi-Fi, and the option of built-in 3G, users are free to work wherever they are, perfect for mobile teams. With Chromebooks, computers will be simpler to manage, more secure, and easier for users to operate. Companies will write fewer checks for software licenses, complex hardware, and data recovery, and IT will spend less time on tedious maintenance tasks. Plus, Google will always be there to help by providing full-service support, including phone, email, and even hardware replacement. All this adds up to happier, more productive users and much lower costs.
Alright, so similar to that first video, but more targeted towards what we're concerned about here.
Derrick, by the way, when
you
get to a point where you think, well, I've got about 15 minutes left to go, let me know and I'll go get that.
Okay. All right, sounds good. We'll see how we do here. So the video showed us, again at large, what, how much simpler these Chromebooks make the whole management side of rolling out these devices. Is anyone here that's familiar with, putting out the technology in the classroom, putting out that technology in our labs? There's always a side of it where these devices need to be maintained. And this is where the Chromebooks are hopefully streamlining this process for us, so we don't have to sit there doing as many of these maintenance tasks as I know I have to, on a very consistent basis. Michael does, anyone that works with this kind of technology as well. So at a glance, what goes into taking these Chromebooks and giving them out to classrooms full of students? A few steps go into this. First off, we have to get all the Chromebooks enrolled. And I'm going to go over this in just a few slides in terms of how we're going to manage the rollout. Is it going to be managed by tech, or is it going to be managed by teachers in the classroom? That determination will tell us who's going to actually be doing the enrolling. And the enrollment process, whoever handled it here for these few devices that are already set up, it's not that difficult. Were you the one that was enrolling all of them? It's just just have to type in the one account into the screen to get it up and running, and it's pretty much enrolled. So it's a really quick process. The second part of it is that we have to have Google Apps accounts for everyone. I guess one question I wanted to ask first off, maybe John or what's your name again? I forgot.
Tony.
Tony. What do the kids all have individual logins here at the school when they go on their computer? Or do we also have guest accounts generally used?
K may be better on that.
We have general student accounts like HS_student, LMC student, depending on the location of the lab or the computers. But we will have to create individual accounts.
Yes.
Here. And can we do that automatically from the student information system? Do a CSV file?
Yes, and I will go over that. That is a part of one of my slides, and we'll go over. So that is going to probably be our best option, because for a district that's a little bit larger like ours, for District 207, we are using a process that synchronizes our Windows login system for all our Windows machines, and then the same accounts are utilized for Google Apps as well. So ideally, any student that gets a Chromebook in our district, they already are all set up because they know their password for logging in. It's the same as logging onto a Windows machine. That kind of process, obviously, you'd have to change a whole lot on your back end to get something like that all going. But uploading a CSV file is just as simple. You'll be able to put in all the students in there, make sure they all get default passwords, and then hand those off to the teachers. And we'll go into that a little bit further in just a bit. So everyone has to have a Google Apps account. That's the first thing. Teachers will have to have them, and so will the students. Without that, it is possible, and this is something that you were getting at. How can we do this without having everyone log in right off that main screen?
Yeah, well, our kids all have accounts. We all, the staff, kids, everybody has a Google account. We're just wondering how to keep everybody from having different logins in the Chromebooks.
Okay, yeah, and that's definitely an option. We can get that going, and part of that is going to be with that guest mode that they have as an option on all the Chromebooks. So Google Apps accounts for everyone. Without that, yes, you can use that guest account if you truly want to. But ideally, the nice thing is that if they all have their own accounts, this is where you're going to be able to have the sharing in Google Docs. So pretty much, if they don't have Google Apps accounts, all they can pretty much do is browse the web on these devices. For some people, that might be useful. For most other people in this pilot program, we're going to want them to have that full functionality of Docs and all the different products and apps. We'll also have to configure all the different user and device policies in Google Apps, and this is something. The Google Apps control panel can be a little convoluted at times. It's a little difficult to manage some parts of it, but I'm going to go into. We're going to do a live demonstration of what the difference is between policies that affect all the devices, policies that affect the different user groups that we have in Google Apps, and I'm going to show you what all those different things mean and how they're controlled. Next step is that we have to configure what apps actually are available. We can go ahead and turn on and off the apps such as Gmail, Calendar, Docs, all those core products. There's a bunch of apps that Google has available in what's called the Google Apps Marketplace, where you can actually turn that on as a service for the whole domain. So if you turned on, say, EasyBib as a service for all the kids, then when they logged in, they'd have that loading up right on their homepage as an app available for them. So that's one other part of the process. Part of this also is testing. We need to make sure that whatever kind of policies we put into place, depending on how stringent we are or what kind of hands-off approach we take to it, that's going to suit the needs of both the users, the teachers that are involved in this, so that I always believe that the user should have a good amount of freedom on devices like this, but there always has to be limits, and that's one thing we have to keep in mind. In that some kind of limits that may be plausible for your district might not be plausible for John's district. So those are the kind of things that we need to think about when we're configuring these devices. Step number 6, probably the most fun for all the kids: distribute the Chromebooks. Have to put them in the hands of the users and let them get started with using them. They're not going to learn how to get around these devices, learn the software, and start becoming a part of the digital classroom unless they actually have them. So that is a very important part in how we do that. I'll go over in just a moment. And then 7, we can't forget about this. This is something that some districts sometimes forget about, is that ongoing testing and training. You have to remember that no matter what kind of training, what kind of preparation goes into getting a program like this going, you have to keep fostering that continuous professional development, continuous training, that continuous ability to allow the teachers to keep having the kids learning the different products and changes when Google updates their Google App Suite, as we saw with the recent Docs and Gmail change. For some people that's a shocking difference, and we have to make sure that everyone is kept in the circle, kept in the loop with all these things, because we don't want kids to get left behind. Once the kids feel like this is foreign to them and they really can't use it, that's when they stop using the device as it was intended, as the teachers want them to go ahead and utilize this. Just a few technical tidbits that didn't fit into any one particular slide entirely. One important thing to remember is that only Chromebooks that are purchased directly from Google can be used and managed through Google Apps. So there's been a lot of discussion online. Well, can I just go to Best Buy and purchase 15 of these from Best Buy or from Amazon.com and bring them into my campus and allow them to be managed? No, you cannot do that. I'm not particularly sure why Google doesn't allow that. I'm sure they want to keep a piece of the pie coming back to them on these sales, but nonetheless, you cannot just purchase Chromebooks from anywhere and have them work on your Google Apps console. If you're just looking for straight internet devices that don't have to be managed, that you're just going to pop into like a study hall or library that are used just for basic internet, that's fine, but you cannot manage those devices. One of the things we talked about from before, I'm going to go into this. I have one whole slide we're going to dedicate to the printing, the cloud print as Google calls it. It's doable. It's definitely an option. Just that the amount of setup, the amount of maintenance, and constant watch that has to be put into keeping this Google Cloud Print going, I don't think it's ideal yet. I don't think it's ready for prime time, and I personally, I wouldn't recommend using it with a large class of kids or multiple classes of kids. I think there's going to be more, you're going to run into issues. I think there's going to be disappointment, and I think you're just going to be more frustrated, have more time lost in the classroom than is worth it. So I would say put that time towards finding out how to keep that paper from being printed. Let's figure out how to keep that content digital, prevent ourselves from having to make those paper copies, and I think we'll be a lot happier in that regard, at least for the short term. And I really think that this is something we should bring up with Steve when we call him later on today, John, and ask him what are the plans for Cloud Print. What kind of plans do they have for classrooms that are using these and allowing printing on a mass basis without having to have the teacher log into her account and keep a Windows machine up and running. It's just not an ideal setup for a classroom. In terms of managing the devices, managing the user accounts, one of the things that I read in a lot of my research is that a minimalistic approach is definitely a good way to look at handling these devices. I know the old thinking in terms of how to manage technology and user accounts, always get them tightened down as much as possible, turn everything off, and just have the only things that they need available. I really think that it's not only going to introduce issues with management problems, but it's also going to create a situation where kids don't have some of the freedom to go further and explore beyond those walls that we're trying to break, and have them utilize all these different apps that are available. And one of the great things about these Chromebooks is that the apps marketplace, all the different apps that are available beyond just strict websites that we have on the web, I mean, the content is just limitless. I mean, the possibilities are there, and Michael's going to start going into that after lunch, all the different tools that can be used on here. And as you'll see, it's very, very interesting to find out all the different ways and all the different things you can do with this. I mean, if you're thinking about these Chromebooks as a device that are solely for sitting in Google Docs and just sharing, writing a paper together, you might be blown away with the kind of things that other districts have been doing, and we're going to show you, what's been working in the classroom. One of the other things that I mentioned previously, but I want to go into a little more detail about, is the fact that updates, while it's nice that they're done automatically, while it's nice that it's a hands-off approach in terms of the fact that we don't have to worry about patching systems, updating them on a yearly basis, this presents an issue because Google pushes all these updates out to all the devices on a schedule that is not yet 100% clear. I think they just push it out whenever they feel it's ready. That could be, from what I've read, it could be once a week, it could be once every 2 weeks. It could be more consistent than that, depending on what kind of issues they see, what kind of issues are closed up and gaps that are filled. It's nice, yes, keeps the device nice and fresh, but these updates get pretty sizable. In terms of size, when I've talked to Google, they said this update could be anywhere from 300 megabytes to a gigabyte in size for each device. And the bad part is, and I don't know why they didn't think about this, you cannot control the schedule of when these things are pulled down. It happens on the fly, could be happening to all the Chromebooks that are logging in at the same time, first period of the day, and that could choke the internet connection for hopefully not just the class, hopefully not everyone, but most likely for the surrounding area for the time being until all those updates are completed. And that is a big issue in our district because our wireless boxes are not the strongest, and even laptops, doing some basic browsing sometimes, having too many devices in an area, can kill the connection, bring that internet down to a crawl. So internet speed is going to be a bigger problem when we're looking at a device like a Chromebook where the cloud is our platform. It's not just a Windows machine. We're using traditional software. Everything we do is on the web, and when that web connection is flaky, or there are updates being pushed out to everyone and the devices are slowing the internet to a crawl, those are some of the things when I said that we're going to run into some speed bumps. Those are possibly some of the things that kids are going to notice and we might get some gripes about. It's a growing pain. There's no easy solution for it yet from everything I've been reading and talking to people at Google, but I'm really hoping the kind of pressure that IT people like myself are putting on Google, hopefully they introduce maybe an option to say, okay, update Chromebooks only in this window outside of this time, after this time, or allow us to, in a little more technical manner, download this update to a central server inside of a school and then push that to the Chromebooks from that one system. So all the different 30 Chromebooks in the classroom are not hopping out to the internet to update from their Wichita server or wherever it's coming from. So that's one of the challenges with these Chromebooks that I don't think Google thought out 100%, but I think is going to get better. It is. It really is.
Because if it's going to push out at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you have class at 9 o'clock in the morning,
you have no control over it. Yeah. You don't know it's going to hit. You have no control over it. And from the speed I've been seeing on the internet, here alone, just from what we're doing right now, I can imagine on a normal school day, it's probably, we get a classroom full of 20, 30 kids on Chromebooks, and they're all updating. It's going to choke us a little bit, and it's going to be noticeable. So that's one thing, John, I think we should bring up to Google in terms of these updates, because there's no way to control it, and there's no way to know when it's going to hit. So it's sort of an unknown, brick wall that's going to hit you in classes.
Even if you could know, you could kind of schedule your classwork around. It's going to happen on Tuesdays. They boot.
If someone can put that into the moderator, put that question in so we can make sure it gets asked.
You hit all 100 at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, worst case scenario, I'll tell you right now, 100 kids, okay, you have 4 classrooms of 30, 20, 30 students each. Everyone turns on the first time of the day, right when first period starts. And Google decided to push that update out maybe middle of the night, and those kids are just turning it on. They're all going to get hit. And I have no clear answer for how that's going to get managed.
Yeah, but now on Google, maybe they usually tend to move pretty quickly on.
Yes, and I'm really hoping that all this feedback.
Try to do it by serial number, and just do. Of course, doesn't help you if you're all in a row and yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. But everyone I talked to, everyone at Google's been like, I don't know when that feature's coming. I don't know if it's coming at all. So this hesitation and unknown that I'm, the kind of feeling that I'm getting from them, doesn't instill the best feeling. But hopefully they do change that policy. One thing that other districts have asked for in terms of like an emulator, or where teachers, so they don't have to have physical units where they're testing maybe new software or apps that they want students to be using. They were asking if an emulator is ever going to be available, so like a virtual kind of test environment for the Chromebook. There are no plans, as far as I've read and talked to people, to have something like that available. Hopefully that won't be an issue, because everyone will have their own Chromebook here, so you can do your own tests for, say you want your kids to have access to this app or this particular website or functionality, and you can just test it out yourself and then allow that to be pushed out to all the students. Another thing to keep in mind, lost, stolen, broken devices do not equal lost data. So that whole notion of, you have a Windows desktop or a Windows laptop or a Mac laptop, and the kids were making content, presentations, documents on there, it got stored there, that gets lost, their data is all gone, that is no longer an issue. We have to keep in mind that the nice part about this is that the cloud is hosting all this information. There's nothing being stored on these Chromebooks of value. Well, let me take that back. The next thing, actually, we'll go into that. There is a small little area on the Chromebooks where kids can temporarily store data, information, like if they're downloading something from an email, they can put it into this thing called the file shelf, and then move that into, say, Google Docs, or move that into some other online service, but it's not meant for long-term storage. So that is the only spot where if they put something there and they lose the device or break the device, it could possibly be gone. But we don't want to be teaching kids to be storing stuff in that file shelf anyway. We want to teach them, if you have something that you need to have saved, it needs to go into a Google Doc. It needs to be put into a Google presentation. Do not be saving things into the file shelf. As I was saying previously, one of the biggest speed bumps that districts are running into with the Chromebooks has to do with wireless and internet speed. And from everything I've gathered, I put together a few usage tips for how we can make this roll as smoothly as possible. And I know here, I didn't know that we were setting up a separate Chromebook wireless network. That's perfectly fine, and it seems like all of them are functioning just fine on that wireless. But a majority of the districts that have some advanced authentication methods on their Wi-Fi, they have to stick to using guest wireless networks. So like the guest that I was using previously in my laptop. Since that's already been set up, we don't have to talk much further about that. But that kind of wireless problem has been pretty prevalent. If there are gaps in coverage, it's going to become noticeable. This is where the implementation of the wireless network is really going to come into play, because just for example, I don't know what the layout of this classroom is. I presume that all these student desks are close towards the. You can probably answer this best. Are they set up in an even manner throughout the room over here? So it might be. I'm not saying it is, but we won't know until you actually start doing class with these. Maybe kids in the front are going to have better access to the wireless than the ones sitting maybe all the way up against the back wall. Wireless coverage is a very nasty beast. It's a very tough thing to get 100%. Wi-Fi, when we think of it in the realm of using it in the classroom in an environment like this at a school, is different than our cell phones. Our cell phones function on very different kind of wireless technology where you can have signal pretty much in any corner of a room these days. But laptops that are using wireless in a classroom environment are very dependent on having a good wireless connection. And if there are gaps in the classroom, the kids are going to know, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be dropping out off the wireless. They're going to be the ones that are going to have the slower connection, and they will be vocal about it. When we have laptop carts in use, particularly in the building I work at, in our science department, which is on the 3rd floor of a tall building, there's usually a lot of laptops in use at the same time. And this is unfortunately where our wireless coverage isn't the best. So parts of the classroom, kids have to sit there, and sometimes they have to move because they just can't get Wi-Fi in that part of the room. Whether it be interference from the microwaves being used, or interference from large metal cabinets that are sitting in spots. We don't always know where the wireless signal is going to hit, where it's going to be best. So this is something where, when you're working with the kids, we're going to have to make them cognizant of the fact that if they have problems connecting to the wireless where they're sitting, maybe we'll have to change the seating up a little bit. Maybe we'll have to move people around a little, because changing seating is a lot easier than changing where our boxes are sitting in the ceiling right now. So that's one other thing to keep in mind. And as we were talking about the scheduling of updates, they are going to happen randomly at startup. This is uncontrollable as of right now, and hopefully we can get a clear answer from Google as to when this will be something that we can have further control over, and something that doesn't choke our internet connection like it does. And again, as I wrote here many times, user education is a big part of this. The fact that students are going to be part of this digital generation here in the classroom with all these Chromebooks, they have to be responsible for these devices, and they have to be aware of these few different issues that may occur. It's a learning process for everyone. Nothing's going to be perfect, and just as the staff, as teachers, we have to nurture the students and help them out with these things. We have to be aware of what can happen, so the students aren't freaking out when they perhaps are sitting in this part of the room and wireless signal isn't great, or the updates are rolling in on all the Chromebooks and no one can get on the internet. We're going to have to work around those things.
Derrick, on the updates, if a student has this home and Google just happens to push out an update at 5 p.m. and the student logs on at home using the 3G option, will it update on 3G?
Ooh, that is a good question. I haven't even thought of that.
Okay,
and here's the issue with that. Actually, 3G is our next slide, so I'll just move over to that. That is a good question, because a big part of the issue with the Chromebooks is that if we get 3G rolled out on all of them, they only have 100 megabytes a month to work with. So if one update is 300 megs and they're pulling that on 3G, they wiped out their whole connection for the whole month already, their whole quota of internet bandwidth. So that is a good question, and we need to ask Steve about that. Are Chromebooks by default pulling updates over 3G when kids are away from school? I would hope they don't. I would hope they're not allowing that. But if they are, that's going to be a big issue for 3G here. So 3G, all the Chromebooks have 3G. It's a very nice option, actually, and I'm really glad that the Chromebooks are one of the first devices to have this universally across the board. And while it's great that they do have it, there are a few caveats, and that's one of the reasons I dedicated a whole slide to it, is because it's not 100% right off the bat in terms of the setup process. I guess that's one of the key things that I'm having an issue with at this time. Verizon provides the 3G service, and is Verizon's the carrier around here for cell phones, correct?
It's for us,
Not for
not
us.
for them.
Oh, really? Oh, so this might be a problem for you.
This is going to be a big problem.
I actually was looking at the coverage map on Verizon's website, and supposedly they say this whole area, at least here in Buffalo, they said we're all covered over here for 3G. I was in the hotel at our Buffalo Inn Suites, and we got no access to 3G from our hotel room. So it was a little scary when I saw.
I was supposed to try it, and I didn't even pull it out last night, and that's where we're at. So
it was a little scary when I saw that, but I was thinking, okay, maybe we're in too many walls or something's going on here. But if coverage is as shaky as I was seeing when we got here, this is something we're going to have to be cognizant of, and maybe we need to ask, maybe we need to get in contact with someone from Verizon and see, okay, what kind of coverage do we truly have for this area? Is your district truly not going to have this option?
Our lady tried. Now we have a woman that has an iPhone at school with Verizon, and she said she is on some sort of extended network through Verizon, and that's why she can get coverage at school. I don't know what that entails. Emma is in the process of.
To be candid with you, it's not a deal breaker for us, but as part of a component of this grant.
And that's why I was so concerned, because I thought that
you had to have that ability to do that. And so that, to be candid with you, is the reason we went with the Chromebooks.
How much of y'all are rural?
We're almost all rural.
Okay.
Did you right here?
We came in the dark.
Well, it's pretty much the same in the
But
deal.
I didn't know how, it was just, being close to Springfield, though, a lot of times.
But we do have
not
3G.
as-
We have 3G on AT&T and on Verizon, so we don't have 3G issues.
I'm surprised you don't have 3G in
I am too.
your motel. Because
I was shocked. I was
I
shocked that
get
we
good
didn't get it.
coverage with Verizon almost anywhere in the county except Long Lake.
Yeah.
But almost, and then
On the
Springs,
Bison
out,
Trail.
out over in yeah.
I think that's what we took to get on over here,
They
John.
called it the Bison Trail.
Oh, you haven't seen country yet. This is city.
This is city.
They didn't even go through the Amish
10
Mennonite
miles
territory.
more.
Yeah. And we have some of your Mennonites.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, they moved
Oh, the
up.
Mennonites are the liberals. We got the Amish here.
They're old order Mennonites, actually.
Maybe that's why they moved up there.
But we usually get really good coverage.
Yeah,
It must have been the hotel.
Are you in the
I
basement?
have to say.
I'm in the basement room. Or in the
No,
bottom.
we're actually we're on the first floor. I mean, by a window, and I couldn't get access to it. So I don't know. Could have been just the device. It could have been just that one
Well, like I
location.
said, it's not gonna break my heart if it doesn't work. I'll just tell Desi thanks for the money, but it
Okay,
wouldn't work.
and that's one of the things I didn't know. I didn't know how crucial that was for this
It would
because
be
some
great.
districts, this was 100% part of the program. And if they didn't get it, they wouldn't go with
Are
this.
you
So
really like us, not wanting them to go home that much?
I think the teachers are probably that way. I'm not that way, but I think the
Emily's
teachers are
kind
probably that
of
way.
not. I mean, yeah, they can go home a couple times, but to make the
So
grant
that
work,
yeah,
but
because of the grant. Yeah.
yeah.
And not only, realistically because of coverage issues is this going to be an issue, but also because if you think about it, 100 megabytes a month, you're going to have, if you're truly going to have kids that are going home with these devices working on 3G and they're not connecting to home wireless, they have to be very careful with what they're doing on these devices. One YouTube video may eat up 6-7 megabytes of that connection. There goes, almost a tenth of your quota for the month. So that is not a lot of data allowance in terms of usage when you think of what we do on the web today. YouTube, multimedia, kids are on Facebook sharing photos, things like that. That's going to eat through that very quickly. So
I tell you what, you try to talk to these Google people about they don't even know Verizon is the partnering agency, and you ask them questions about it, and they're all like, "We don't." And I said, "Well, can you give me a contact with Verizon?" Well, no, just go on the internet. You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah,
That's the solution is to go on the internet to find a contact.
And that's part of the feeling I've gotten is that this whole Chromebook team's been so cobbled together that not everyone's on the same page yet. They're all like, who's doing what, who's functioning, what's the arm doing when the leg's over here. So,
and we do have a budget, and I know Laura knows this, but we do have a budget to purchase supplemental data.
Okay.
But we really don't know how to roll that out. We don't know if that's better to go through and designate certain ones, certain Chromebooks as designated unlimited or whatever, or try to.
and that's another part of the problem is that not only is coverage an issue, not only is the amount of data they're getting per month a problem, but getting the devices set up for 3G, every device needs a credit card number put in.
Yeah.
How do you manage getting a whole classroom of kids to sign up themselves if they all need a credit card?
Yeah.
So this is where it comes into an administration change management, sort of issue where, okay, are we going to have some sort of district card that's given to the teacher and she does this for the kids? Are the parents going to have to step in and just put it in and let me just say off the bat, just because you're putting a credit card in doesn't mean they're charging you anything. They're saying it's just for verification purposes. Yeah. So they don't want, mysterious people just signing up for the 3G and having it. They want actually a name, a true identified name behind the user. And what I think that is that they want someone to be liable in case any kind of illegal activity is done on that device over that connection, which is legitimate concern because every home internet connection has the same kind of restrictions. So I presume that 3G access has to have the same thing. So the fact that there is no easy way to get all these devices activated is a big problem, and this is one of the first things I brought up to John. Bert, who we've been working with from Google, he didn't even have a clear answer on it. He's like, well, that's how it is now. We're not sure if it's going to change soon. One nice thing they're trying to do is to have Verizon allow us to go into the control panel. There's a thing called MEIDs, as sort of identification numbers for all the different devices in the control panel, and they're going to allow you to export those numbers from the control panel, give them to Verizon to mass activate all these devices. But I believe it's still going to require interaction of some kind of a teacher or administrator going in and punching in their credentials on the device. So it'll make it a little bit easier, but still cumbersome, a lot of steps, a lot of hoops you have to go through. So it's really going to be up to you guys if you're going to truly want to go through all these loopholes and finaglements to get this working. So, okay.
They don't mention that in the sales brochure.
No, they don't. They don't. I mean, when you watch the videos and you listen to the sales pitch, I mean, everything's just, you get 3G and it's all a seamless ride. But when you start digging into it, there's a lot more layers to the puzzle that get opened up that you don't know about. And that's the nature of any technology beast that you work with. In terms of the rollout, Google has been helping out a lot of the districts, and the way that they have been asking districts to determine, whether they want staff to manage the rollout or students to manage it is, how do you want these devices to get introduced to all the kids? Do you feel that you'd be able to, such as for this math class, would you be able to just give it to all the students and walk through with them, getting the device enrolled? So maybe that's not the best option. Maybe we would want more of a staff-managed approach to this rollout, where technology helpers, technology staff are brought in, and we're doing this on a collective basis and getting all the devices enrolled, and then giving them out to the students. Some districts, on the other hand, have chosen to go the student-managed rollout. They feel that there's that instant, buy-in from the student when they're, feeling like they're taking ownership. They're enrolling the device. They're bringing that device online, and that's their tool now for learning in the classroom. So it all depends on what direction you want to go in. I personally don't have an opinion one way or the other. If you have concerns about students having a real tough time with getting that first part going, you might want to have the staff take care of it, give out the Chromebooks, and then just look at it that way. Go ahead.
Am I wrong? But if you mess up the enrollment with the enterprise, don't you have to completely wipe?
You do. I'm going to go over that in just a few moments. Yeah, that's one of the issues. Is that I feel that students are going to just open that device, they're going to open the box, get in that Chromebook, log in maybe with a personal account or go into the guest account, and doing any of those things before you enroll the device is pretty much a screwed up enrollment. And that's where you got to go in, and we'll go through that process.
I'm not really good at that.
In just a moment.
About every 10th one, I forget what I'm doing and put in my stuff instead of the right stuff.
Yeah, and it's tricky because there's no instructions on the screen that say do not proceed if you're enrolling a Chromebook. It's sort of a hidden secret feature. Yeah. So this is one of those convoluted.
You're in trouble when the workaround instructions to involve a paperclip. I remember when I got from Google, it's like tools you will need a paperclip.
But really, I rolled ours out. It wasn't bad. I had them set up, and we just left the adapters, and we didn't bother to. It didn't take long for us to roll the system.
I think comparing that to a traditional Windows machine where you got to prep the software, test it, roll it out, put it in the classroom. Great. This is a beautiful thing. So. Relatively, this is the largest gripe we have with getting devices prepped for classroom usage.
And even to wipe it, Tony, I don't think it took
10 minutes.
It's very quick.
I did one because I messed up.
Everybody does it. It's like, ooh.
It's a very, very quick process, and it's very seamless.
I'm going to turn around and go in there the next day, and the yearbook class is in that lab. I'm like, well, what'd they do with my paper clip? And I got to find another one.
One of the things that does unlock, though, and one of the things I'm concerned about, I haven't read much about this online, or no one's really said anything about this, but in terms of stolen devices. I mean, think about it. If a student can just go ahead and find out online, like we did, to wipe the device, bring it back to clean mode, it's pretty much a device that is off your Google Apps control panel. So it's nice that it's so easy to wipe, but I think it opens some interesting holes in terms of device security and losing management of a device if a kid is, even intermediately technically inclined and just does a little Google search for how to wipe a Chromebook.
Those are the ones you try to get on your side.
Yeah.
They become IT people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, those are the ones you recruit, so they have a little ownership on it.
And that's one of the things that goes into, how do the kids view these devices? When you have kids that are, feel like they have ownership over the device, and if they're not coming to class and that device is not working, it's a lot different feeling than the kids that, like at our district, I see a lot of problems with just, pure blatant destruction, just, dropping the devices, not caring, writing on the screens with pen. A large problem with that is, yes, the kids are at fault, they're doing the damage, but The fact that they have no ownership over the product. They take it from a laptop cart. It doesn't even matter if it goes back into the right tray or not at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if it's charging for the next student or not. They really don't care. With something like this, I believe that ownership aspect really kicks in, especially if the kid is assigned their own Chromebook.
See, and we're not doing that, but I wish we were.
Because then the kid is really going to feel liable for whatever happens to this. They're not going to toss it in their backpack and knock it on an edge and crack the screen. They're going to say, hey, maybe I need to pack this a little more carefully because if I don't show up to class tomorrow with it, you're not going to be happy with that student. So you're getting an F, exactly.
We have laptops with missing keys. How often have you ever had a key fall off?
Yeah.
I mean...
Yep.
Yeah, and those kind of things.
That's a good idea.
I was planning on
That is a good idea.
And assigning each student a different number, and then they have to have that numbered
Every day.
Chromebook every day.
Exactly.
And that will be the only Chromebook that their login is on.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And part of that is having the students that go on those Chromebooks, then the next period or the next day, make sure that when they log on to it, if it's not in good shape, you need to report that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because that is the only way kids are going to feel responsible for the damage they do to these units.
Right.
And if they're not, they're not going to care. They are not going to care.
Well, and then that way, there's only 6 students tied to a Chromebook versus 180.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, good idea.
Yeah, and if they only get that one, well, then they want it to work.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because, if you occasionally have
Take
fun,
off the
fun
lever.
things on it, it's like,
So the enrollment process, very easy. I'm just going to go over it in very broad terms, for anyone that's not 100% familiar with it, since you'll be probably involved in getting more devices set up for enrollment. Very easy to do. You turn on the Chromebook, you're going to get a screen that shows you options for connecting to the network, for what kind of keyboard language you want, and what your primary language is as well. We're just going to go ahead and select those options to begin with. And the most important part is getting ourselves on the wireless first off. Is there a key that I can know for the HS Chromebooks?
It's let's see, what is it? What do we have? Buffalo with a @ sign for the A.
Lowercase b.
Yeah. 10 HS.
Okay, it'll connect to the network for us. And this is one of the other things that I'm finding. I don't know if it's just this version of the Chrome operating system that they have loaded on right now, the version, version 16 that's loaded up. But for example, I was trying to use it at our hotel last night. We were typing in the password, and it seemed like every third try it would only connect to the wireless. So the devices are still a little bit picky in terms of how seamlessly they're going to work on the Wi-Fi. And this is one of the things we need to be making the kids aware that you're going to run into issues at times. It's not going to be 100%.
Well, and out of the 60 I did, I think I had 2.
Two that had issues.
Kept kind of trying to drop, so I wondered if it was just their wireless card that maybe wasn't quite kosher, or...
I think that the software that controls the wireless cards in these Chromebooks is still in its infancy, and Google's still trying to perfect it. That's my personal opinion of working with wireless for many years on the Windows side of things. I think they're experiencing that kind of issue right now. Yes, I might be typing it in wrong, but no big deal. I'm going to walk you through it. Here through the steps. So once you get yourself on the wireless, accept the terms of service, initial downloads are going to go ahead and complete. So before you even enroll, it's going to start pulling updates on the fly from Google systems. So that's one thing to be aware of. So if you were by chance to do a enrollment with kids in the classroom and they were to do it themselves, that's a point where internet might start choking out on you if they're all pulling that 1 gigabyte update to the devices. The biggest thing to be aware of when you're enrolling is, as some of you already know, be sure before signing in, do not go into guest mode, do not allow anyone to sign in. The device, you have to go ahead and hit Control-Alt-E. That is the magic key combination to bring up the secret screen of logging in to your Google Apps domain. And I'm pretty certain that anyone that has even basic administrator privileges for the domain can log in and enroll that device. So I'm not 100% certain on that, but I believe that's what the guy from Google told me. So after that, you're going to go ahead and just enter your Google, any staff Google Apps account. So any staff account with Google Apps is going to have that privilege to go ahead and enroll it. Quick enroll device. The device is enrolled. That's when you can give it out to the students. They can start using it right then and there. And then, as Tony was saying, in terms of devices that get missed, it's not very difficult to go ahead and get the device wiped. And actually, you'll know if a Chromebook is being managed or not. It'll show you on the bottom left-hand corner, it should, right on the login screen, it'll show managed by dallas1.k12.mo.us. If it doesn't show that, that device is not enrolled. So it's a good way of seeing, if a kid's having issues logging in, or if the device is not acting as it should, not pulling up the policies that it should be getting. If you make a quick check for that on the login screen and see that device for some reason missed enrollment, you'll know that you have to go through this process to get that device changed over. So again, as you were telling me, you were using the paperclip in that. It's just a matter of opening up. There's a little secret switch underneath this little door here where there's the USB icon on the left-hand side of the device. You pull the door off. There's a little switch that is there. You'll have to use a paperclip or a very small knife to push it to the right. And then you'll be able to go ahead and turn on the Chromebook. And then we'll have to hit Control-D. There'll be like an image of a sad computer user in cryptic, text showing on the screen. So you hit Control-D. It'll take about 5 minutes or so to go ahead and wipe the device. It'll show an initial sign-on screen, but we need to go ahead, turn off that Chromebook, and flip that switch back. Otherwise, every time you turn it on, it's going to be in white mode every single time. So we need to flip the switch back after it's wiped. Then we can go back on and go through that enrollment process once more. So very easy. I mean, relatively, that is a lot easier than any other device I'd have to reset any Windows machine or Mac system. So that is the one caveat of working with these devices. In terms of the Chromebook sign-in, the sign-in screen is going to look different every time after the first. So the first time the kid is, I tried to take a picture with my BlackBerry, it didn't work out that well. But the first time, the student's just going to get a plain sign-in screen like this, just asking for the email address and the password. And every time after that, you're going to get a collection of icons that are going to start showing depending on how many students are using one particular Chromebook. So if you have one Chromebook that's assigned to 7 different periods, 7 different students, you're going to have a collection of 7 different little icons that are going to show up on the screen. Some districts ask Google, from what I read, that can we just make it where it's just a straight sign-on screen like that, showing every single time? Yes, that option is coming. They will have that available as an option in Control Panel at some point in the near future. But it's just not an option yet.
So the sign-in thing's probably going to be going away.
Yeah, this little picture thing, you'll be able to choose if you want that stored or you do not want it stored. Now how it works, if you have, say, a Chromebook that's shared amongst 20, 30, maybe 40 kids, it can't store, obviously, all these logins indefinitely, so it's going to start wiping out the oldest person that logged in last. And it'll just keep moving up the chain like that.
So probably if we just wait, that'll be okay.
Yeah, yeah. But one of the things that you brought up is that you don't want the kid even signing in at this first screen. You want them to just go in and then log into the services that they want.
Well,
right?
if they can do this, we just didn't want the 20 or 30.
Oh, so that's all you were concerned about.
Pictures, yeah. So if they
okay.
come up to this, we can just skip it.
Yeah, like I said, that is not an option yet.
We actually have teachers borrow, like if they're not using it in this classroom, the other class will come get the thing. So the whole putting 6 kids on one machine's not quite so great for us. So, and we were just thinking that, if every kid signs in,
it's going to get messy. So if you start getting more than about 5 people, this will get a little
right. But
congested.
if they're going to go to this shortly to where that doesn't have to be.
Yeah, and I think this is a lot cleaner, especially for devices that are going to be shared amongst many different kids.
Right.
Why does every kid need to see all the other pictures for all the other kids?
And I'm also thinking that'll take care of the case of not signing out in Google, because we have that a lot. You know how if you don't sign out in Google on a regular computer, when you open up and you go, well, then their account is still there.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping this will take care of them not signing out.
That's true.
Are you concerned with them staying logged in? You don't want them to stay logged in when they sign out?
Well, when they share the laptops, like our laptops now.
This does take care of. This does. I mean,
Right.
that has been a part of the
Right, 'cause
Chromebook
that's
from day
been-
one.
okay,
So as soon as they
because-
sign out of their account, they're logged out of all the different things they were logged
Well,
into.
but on our laptops now, if a kid's in their account, they shut her down, they shut down Internet Explorer, they close it up, they put it back in the cabinet. Well, the next kid that gets it, even if they
Yes, with Internet
log
Explorer,
in
that
and
is still
go
an
in
issue.
and,
Yes.
You know, it's just.
But Chromebooks, no, they sign you out. As far as I know, they sign you out of all the core Google app services. So
Right.
anything tied, anything that is that login is tied to Google apps, you are signed out as soon as you shut down the Chromebook, or you're signed out and back to the home screen. So
Right.
that is a nice security
Because
feature
our
that has been an
laptops
issue
don't
where
do
kids,
that.
you tell them as many times as you want, but they don't listen to you. They don't really.
They never finish anything.
Exactly. I mean, we have Windows machines that stay logged in, and I have kids sometimes complaining of, I lost all my work. I stayed logged. I forgot to log my machine out yesterday. Someone probably went in maliciously and got rid of some files on you. It's not a crazy thing
Yeah.
to believe. It happens all the time, and until something catastrophic like that happens, they won't learn. But this is a nice sort of way of doing it for them automatically and ensuring that no one's work is truly
This
lost.
is a very elementary question, but if people
Sure.
have multiple Google accounts, I mean, like students, like I have a personal Gmail account, and then I have this thing that we're working on this. If I try to log into my personal Gmail account, what will happen?
It will ask you if you want to enable what's called multiple sign-in. We were talking about this as well. You have to turn it on once for every account that you want to use this feature with. It's very seamless. It's like a one-click kind of screen that will come up if you try to do it. It'll ask you, do you want to turn on multiple sign-on? It looks a little more scary than it actually is because it doesn't really do anything
Will
besides...
it
Will
work
it
if
do it
you're
on
in the
this?
apps thing, though?
Yes. I have
Okay,
done
so
it. I've been
even
logged
though
into my personal, my work, my
Even though you're
district
on the
account, as well as my
enterprise.
FireLogic. I've been on all three just fine.
Okay.
That functionality is tied to that option called multiple sign-in.
Is that something that you can manage off where it's not allowed? What I'm worried about is kids, well, maybe that's...
Are you worried about them going to their personal email during the day?
Well, I mean,
Do they have that option to begin
they
with?
do
now?
right now. I'd love to be able to shut it down, but they do have it right now. Yeah, just
It's
because
a kind
we don't have any other
Well, and
options.
even through the apps, like you've shut down chat and stuff, but if they go to their outside Gmail account,
Yeah, that is a
the
concern.
chat's going to be available.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that is a concern. That is something you'll have to think about when you're managing your actual internet filter at the actual connection level. Do you want to be turning off the functionality to get to Gmail? I mean, we can do that within the Google Apps control panel. You can turn off the ability to go to up to 100 websites. They allow you to put in as on the blacklist. So you can do that on the Chromebooks, but in order for that to apply to all the other Windows devices you have, you'd have to do it on the level that K controls the internet filter. Okay. Google Apps accounts. This is something that I was discussing with Kay, and this might be important for anyone that's managing accounts or that's setting up accounts for the first time for the district. We have 3 different options of what we can do to get these accounts going, and 2 of them are easy. We're probably going to be choosing between these 2, and this one's probably out of the scope of for either of the districts in attendance here. The first option is we can just put them in manually. And when I say manually, it's pretty much copying and pasting information and just using control panel to type in, straight by hand all these different accounts for all the kids. For small deployment of Chromebooks where you're just having, I would say under 50 people, it's probably maybe easiest to do this, maybe even under 20. If you have any number of students that need to be set up, I probably would recommend, and I was talking with Kay about this, is going over a CSV file. So exporting from your student information system the information that Google Apps needs for this initial setup. And while I didn't put this in here, it's more of a technical thing that we can go over after we're done. But I can give you the information of what they want to see in that file. So they want, obviously, last name, first name. I think they want you to set up the default password that's going to be used. And once you have that, you can pull that file into Google Apps, and it'll automatically make all those accounts then for you.
If you wanted to follow a particular format, like for our network logins for students, which we have a few, we use their cohort year, then their full last name, full first name. Can you do it that way too?
I think you would have to set that up in your spreadsheet, your
Okay,
CSV
set
file
it up
before
in
you
the
import. I
spreadsheet,
think you
exactly
have to
like
specify. I haven't done it in a little while, but you have to specify that password that you want set. So Google will then take that, and then you'll be able to tell the students, here's your default password.
No,
So-
I'm talking their username, cohort year, last name, first name.
Oh, same way. You'd
Same
have
way.
to. You'd have to
You
go
would
ahead.
put like John Smith, and his username is 12 Smith John, and then his default password. So you
Correct.
would like have 4 or 5 columns.
Correct. Okay. And I don't believe either of your districts have this issue, but if you had already a system in place like LDAP or Windows Active Directory that handled all of your accounts, if you ever move to that, you do have the option of using, which is a very nice feature, but it's time consuming to set up. It's called single sign-on. So kids are using Windows machines. The same login they use for that is the same login they use for the Chromebooks and also for their Google Apps accounts. So it all unifies that login for one username, one password.
If you set these up initially with the CSV file, and then let's say next year when we roll it out bigger, wide, and we want to do it with the Active Directory sync, will we have issues?
I don't think you will. We used to have this, we went from the same scenario. We had student Gmail or student Google Apps was its own separate entity, and the passwords were not shared with the same password they used to log into the computers, and we unified that, I believe, last year actually, and I don't think there were many issues with it. So it works pretty well. It's just, there's a lot of options you need to configure with the tool that sets up this directory sync, and that's probably the toughest part of getting that going. Once it's set, once you test it, roll it out, it's pretty much smooth sailing after that. In terms of user organization, this is one of the things that catches a lot of people off guard, and I actually took a look at how you structured, how the different users are already put into Google Apps, and we have them in a few different places, and I didn't know if we had a complete grasp in terms of how these user accounts are supposed to be set up or how the structure is supposed to be managed, but I will go over that in a live demonstration in just a moment, and I'll show you what are best practices for having all these different accounts, how we can utilize the way we organize the user accounts. So we have a separate staff area of Google Apps accounts, a separate student area, how we can control the different services that each of them get. So a big example many districts do, they have a staff sub-organization just for staff members, and they all get Gmail access. Students do not get Gmail access. So that's possible as long as our setup is done properly right off the bat. And as I said, if you need different services, different kinds of controls, more strict policies for the students, we want to make sure that they're separated, because otherwise, if everyone's in the same bucket, everyone's getting the same security restrictions. So if the teachers are supposed to be able to use Gmail or Calendar and the students aren't, you wouldn't be able to do that if they're all in the same big bucket. As I was saying a little bit earlier, we can go ahead and give multiple people the access into Google Apps to be able to administer these different things. So maybe you wanted to go into and have access and go into Google Apps to control perhaps the start pages that your students had in your Chromebooks for your classroom. You wanted to change that on a weekly basis because you were doing this project this week and this project the next week. You would be able to be given access to go in and change those settings just for your set of students, their Chromebooks, without touching everyone else's Chromebooks and all their devices. So that does give you some control over what your students are getting in the classroom. So we have two different types of accounts that can manage within Google Apps. The first ones are super admins. I have an account like that right now temporarily. John's got a super admin account. Tony's probably got super admin access. These accounts have a lot of capability. They can do a lot of damage. However, these people need to be careful because with that power comes responsibility. You can screw a lot up. You can do a lot of damage very quickly. Google Apps Control Panel makes a lot of things easy, but with that ease makes it that much more damaging if you touch the wrong things in the wrong place. So the super admins can do anything. They, as I said, can make some dangerous changes to the way Google Apps functions for all the students. I would say it's only necessary for those core people that are doing the higher level management of this. And I would say definitely keep this under 10 people. Ideally, I would keep it 5 or less. But people that have admin privileges, and this term admin might give this a little more fluff than it should, but we can give teachers a little bit of admin access, or we can give them a lot of admin access. And probably one of the best ways to give them admin access for Google Apps would be, okay, turn on, and I'll show you this in a moment, we're going to go into the control panel and do this in person, but we can give, say, all the teachers that are in charge of the Chromebook classrooms, we can give them the capability to manage just the settings area, which gives them control over the Chrome, all the Chrome settings, the Chromebook settings. So they can change what applications their students can't get access to. Maybe there's some website that's going viral amongst all the students. They don't want them going to this game or something, or they want the specific home pages to start loading up for them. And that kind of access we can give the teachers to, again, be more invested in how their devices are working, what their students are doing, all the while not giving them too much privilege to make all these damaging choices for Google on the back end. Yes?
Our tech lady actually is down to part-time. She's no longer teaching, so she just works so many hours a day. So we gave one of our teachers in the high school the ability to change the passwords for the
Perfect
kids.
example.
Because I'm over in the elementary side, so he has just the ability to change the password.
Perfect example. Someone can have the ability just to do passwords. Someone can have the ability to maybe put in new users and change passwords, but can't change Chromebook settings.
Yeah.
So you can get pretty granular with what kind of access you give people. Okay, I'm going to jump into the control panel on the screen, and we're going to go through...
I swam in this panel one day, and trust me, you don't need John Turner swimming in this panel.
All right, so this is probably going to be very relevant for Kay, Tony, and probably yourself if you're going to be managing some of
the
the...
organization is what I'm anxious to see. I don't think we have ours quite set up.
Okay.
Tree-wise with...
Okay.
And Laura, let me just tell you, Derrick, Laura she's a math teacher, but she has a good computer background. And I'm trying to make this project as an experiment to have little to no impact on Kay and Tony, although they're going to laugh about that all the way home tonight because it's already had an impact on them. But Laura's going to really be our lead teacher, and so she's going to be sort of the one that's sort of in charge.
Then she's someone who we're going to probably have to give that limited admin access to. So let's jump into the control panel here together. So, I've already got the dashboard loaded up here, so let me log in. And the nice part about this is, if you want to make changes from home or you want to make changes from the library, you can do this pretty much anywhere. You don't have to be sitting within the school to be able to make these changes. So, if you're given access to do specific functions in here, the beautiful part about Google Apps is you can make these changes no matter where you may be. And if you have access to the Google Apps backend, if you don't mind logging into it right now, you can follow along with me, especially if you're here from the Buffalo district. As we're going through things, you can follow along on your screen.
Let's see if I can just switch accounts. It's
Google accounts.
So to log into it would just be google.com/a and then /the. Yeah, so that's the way you get into the control panel at any time. Now, John, one thing I don't want to go too far into this, but have you been testing? You've been testing Gmail, right, within Google? Or do you use that
over a year?
You've been using it, but no one else has access to do email within Gmail.
Okay, you explain.
At least when I saw it from the settings, it looks like everything else is using Exchange right now.
Right.
And
right,
he's
yeah.
like the only one that
He's
can
the
do
only
that.
one that's actually his email. When it hits the Exchange server, it gets forwarded to the
That's what I was
Google
thinking.
account,
Okay.
and then you're using Exchange on you're using Outlook on your
On my computer, on my Mac, yeah.
on his desktop.
Okay.
But it hits the Exchange and then it's forwarded.
I told everybody I wanted to be on the bleeding edge of this. If we're going to roll it out, I want to be the one that's right.
But you're not using the Gmail within the Gmail native interface. You're using Outlook, you're saying?
Yeah.
On the Mac? Okay.
I mean, I do use it from home,
Okay.
using the Gmail app. And that's all I use as far as personal.
Okay.
So, but right now, and it's cause Kay, she's been very, very gentle with me. Right now, Google is open. And so if a student wants to go and create a Gmail account and check email from, it's open. They can do that right now. I would like to get away from that to where we go to just these accounts that we're getting ready to create. But right now, everything is open.
And that's where I think that if we gave all the students, like we did at our district, every student has a Gmail account, they're not going into personal email anymore. I mean, we have it open, but I don't see them going into it very often because they're communicating through school Gmail. So we've given them the tool that they really wanted to be able to use.
Yeah.
Do you have an easy way into the dashboard besides mail and manage this domain?
Well, I just went straight to this address. If you type in google.com/a,
just go straight there.
yeah, /cpanel, or not / email, / the district website address,
Oh, okay.
you can then get into it.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay, good. I understand. So the whole
Yeah, the whole.
deal.
Is that the extension for your website, or is it different?
See, I'm here, tech admin.
Try to open
I'm gonna have to get out and just sign out, I think. And just go in and figure out my whole.
For the password.
Because I had it on here, so it's just easy to go
Okay.
back to it.
Wireless.
Because the whole switching account, I don't always get where I want to be. Because I was in Google Docs and it kept trying to just take me to a different Google
Okay.
Docs. But
Do students have email access right now?
They do.
They do
Well,
not.
they do
Through the school.
personal.
Okay, just
Through the
personal.
school.
Okay. Do we have any plans on perhaps giving them that ability
Yes.
to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that we obviously have control over within the control panel here. So the dashboard, just a quick introduction here. When you log in, you have a few just basic things that tell you, what are the addresses to get to all these different products that we have here for email and docs. And I wouldn't even worry about those addresses because once you log in, for example, to your student or your staff Gmail for the district, you have access right on the top screen, as you'll see, to any other part of the product at any given time. So if someone's in mail, they can go to docs or calendar sites at any time. So it's not that big of a deal. People won't have to be memorizing all these different login addresses for themselves. The first thing that we're interested in is this tab over here, Organization and Users. So I'm going to go into that tab right now. And as we can see here, the way this is structured, if you have any familiarity with how accounts are structured on the Windows side of things, it's set up in a tree fashion. So the accounts that are connected to just the primary domain here at the uppermost level are all listed here under this title, dallas1.k12.mo.us. So all these people, I presume, are just staff members, John, correct?
Yeah.
So no big deal that they're all listed out there. I would be mindful if we're going to be creating student accounts en masse, if we're going to have all the different grade levels having their own accounts, I would suggest that we go ahead and divide this appropriately, perhaps make a simple sub-org called staff and one called students, or divide them out by grade level. So that's one of the things that I would recommend we do. For the time being, it's just fine. You can shift users around to different parts of the organizational tree, but for now we should be fine. I saw that a Chromebooks area was made within here, and then we have sub-orgs on that with this 21st Century CCLC and Title II.
Title II is this project.
This is this project, okay. So for the time being, we might just be putting, I don't know 100%, but we might be just putting students under this Title II category K?
Yes, for the time being.
For the time being? Okay, and we can always move them around.
Now,
And
can you be in more than one organization unit?
what was that?
Can you be in more than one unit? Or is there
Cannot.
a reason to be in more than one unit?
You cannot be.
Okay.
One account is always tied to one org or sub-org.
Okay.
Okay? And the differences that are allowed with these different orgs, and the reason that they're structured in the way they are, the reason they're separated in the way they are, is that if you see this little tab next to the users for that particular org, this is where we have control over what services are available for the students or staff. So, for example, everyone that's in the uppermost part of the organization here, we see that we have access to pretty much every service, except this one was turned off. Android Market Publisher site was turned off. Some of these are a little ambiguous in terms of, or you won't exactly know what they do right off the bat, but most of these services do have a Learn More button, or you can just Google it and see what that particular service actually does. So this is a fairly wide open configuration we have here. I don't exactly know why these few things were turned off, but not a big deal because we're mostly concerned with this upper area here, all the core products in Google Apps. So all these people have Gmail turned on, Google Calendar, Docs, Sites, and Google Talk. So, for example, we wanted all those people within this part of the organization to have all those services. But if we went into Title II, and for all these users that were within here, we have just a few in here for now, but say we were adding students into this as well, if we went over into Services, we could go ahead and override the setting that is inherited from the uppermost part of the tree and set this individually for this part of the for these particular users. So maybe we didn't want students to have Google Talk. Maybe we didn't want them to be able to make websites and Google Sites. Maybe all we wanted was Google Docs. Maybe that's all you wanted to have turned on. So you do have the option to override, turn off that setting, and then go ahead and save that. And that's pretty much all that goes into turning services on and off for people within the domain.
And then could you have a subgroup under the Title IID that said staff and then...
Yeah, we definitely could do that. I think we can go one more down.
You might want your staff to go ahead and have the privileges that are inherited, but not the students.
Correct. And we definitely could do that, because if you went into here, if you were on the Title II, and you see this button up here,
Add sub-organization.
that shows Add Sub-Organization, we can go ahead and further divide that down. Now, and this is where you have to, practice clean management. Don't make too many parts to your tree, because you're going to start getting lost in terms of who has what rights, what's being inherited. Rights can get to be a tricky issue. But while I do say that, I do recommend you still want to have some kind of good, clean organization, because not everyone should have all the same rights. Teachers shouldn't always have the same rights as students, and you never know when you want to implement something like that. So make your organization of users and students as clean as you can off the bat, because going down the road, then it'll be easier to manage whatever you want to implement for them down the road. So that's a little introduction in terms of the different services and what we can do with organizing these different groups. And I wanted to show you how you can go ahead and give someone admin privileges as well. So if we have different teachers that need to get access to just a few different parts of the control panel, that's definitely doable. Can you give me an example of someone here that needs to be given maybe access just to the Chromebook settings?
That would be anyone in the Title II.D, wouldn't it?
Any of those people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Amy Schneider, Carmen Smith, Joy Grable.
Okay. So I'm going to go down into Title II, and so let's give Amy access. So she has currently, and you can quickly scan your user list and see who has what kind of rights. I'm fairly certain that if you have any sort of admin privileges, you're going to show as admin with maybe a star next to it. Super admins obviously have super administrator put next to their name, so you can quickly see maybe there's teachers that shouldn't have access any longer that still do. You can clean up those privileges then down the road. So let's go into Amy's account here, and all we have to do is just click on her name. And there's a few settings that you have on the main screen for any given user. Changing passwords, this would be useful. So right on the main user information screen, you can see that change password is an option. Tony was helping us out this morning with changing passwords on the fly when we were having those issues. So this is useful probably for students that, maybe the student entered his password wrong too many times and, he just got locked out. This would be a good way to just go in, set it for that student, and they can get back and get working again. A lot of these other settings we won't have to worry about unless we're going to get more particular. Email quota, you can see if the students or any user, if they have access to email, you can see how much of their inbox they're using. 25 gigabytes is a lot of storage space. I don't know of any person in our district that has hit that quota or even close to hit it, so trust me, you will not be filling that up anytime soon. These settings we won't have to worry about. That's advanced email stuff. What we're interested in is privileges. So this last tab over here, this is where we're going to go ahead and be setting all these different options for them. So if we truly wanted to make this person a super admin, this is where we would do so. As I said, be careful with who's going to get super admin access. They have the rights to pretty much destroy everything in the control panel that can be done. Down here, this is where we can start picking and choosing what someone has to be able to do. So if we just want a user, or say for example a teacher, to have the ability to reset passwords, right here we can go ahead and reset, allow them to just reset someone's password. And that would be for, I don't know if it's any person in the entire Google Apps control panel or if it's just within their sub-organization. We'll have to look into that a little further. But it does give them access for certain into everyone in their org. And for teachers that just need to have access to control Chromebooks options, this is the magic setting here, settings. If a user has the ability to go into the settings area, they will have the option to be able to control the Chromebooks and how the Chromebooks look in their particular org. So I'm going to go ahead and actually turn on settings for Amy, save it. And now she'll have the option to do what we're going to go into in just a moment, and that's control a lot of these cool, neat settings for all the Chromebook devices and the kids that use the Chromebooks in particular. Kay, was there anything else you were particularly interested in within Control Panel that I missed that you wanted to see?
Don't think so. Tony, how about you? Anything?
I'm
good. Good? Okay. We're going to go into the settings area in just a moment. The Chromebook specific settings can all be changed via that little tab I'm going to go into in just a moment. The settings tab, and then there's a little Chrome OS option within there, along with all the other Gmail docs. All the other core services have their own settings area as well. One thing that I want to make clear right off the bat, this is one of the most confusing things in terms of how rights are applied to the devices and the users. So there are settings that are called user settings, and these apply to the organization of wherever you have your users stored within. So what part of that tree those users are stored in. Most settings can be changed if you have access to this option, and it applies to users in their given organization only. So if teachers have a separate section in Chromebook, in the Chromebook, maybe Chromebook staff you have, and Chromebook students, it applies only to those particular people that are within that part of the tree. And this is key because sometimes teachers need to have more access to do things than the kids should be able to. And these settings apply to any Chromebook. Here's the thing. Say you have Chromebooks that are brought in by students and they're using them, I don't know how plausible this would be, but if you had students coming in and using a Chromebook that wasn't purchased directly from Google, these settings still do apply. It doesn't matter that the device is not managed entirely by your school district. So they would still get the same kind of restricted access even if they brought in their own device. because these policies, as it says there, they're applied as soon as that user logs themselves into the Chromebook. There's an area that I'll show you as well called device settings that applies to all users, and it doesn't matter what organization they're in. So there's only a few options for this because it's such a powerful area. And I even forget what it just controls, I think, the guest, whether a guest is an option on the login screen or not. But this applies to every Chromebook at your district. So you'll have to be very choosy in terms of picky in terms of whether you want this or not, because everyone's going to see this change. And that applies to every single Chromebook that you have before any user is even able to log in. So let's go back into the control panel here. And I'm going to go into the Chromebook settings with everyone. So, if you're in the Google Apps control panel, you want to go into this little settings tab here on the right, upper right hand corner. It'll bring you by default into calendar settings. We're not concerned with that right now. What we are concerned with is this area for Chrome OS. And this is where we have the option to control those different sets of settings that I was talking about just previously. So here's a carbon copy of all our organizational units, and these are those user settings that I was talking about. These are the settings that apply depending on what part of the tree you're in. So, if we wanted to set up, here's a good example. If this was a particular part of the tree just for students, and we wanted to have certain web pages load up by default every time the student logged into their Chromebook. Maybe the school homepage, their student email, and their class website. We could go in and highlight that particular part of the tree, scroll down in the settings area here, and we can go over to user experience. There's an area called user experience, and there's an option here called pages to load on startup. And I tried to get this to work, but it's still working it's a little flaky in terms of, it's a little spotty. But ideally, once the kinks are worked out, you can put in a bunch of different web pages here, separated by commas, and these will load up on the fly every time the kids when the kids turn on their Chromebooks and log in. So how is this useful? Instead of taking 10 minutes out of your class period to tell them how to get to that website that they need to be on, preload it into your control panel, and when the kids get to class, turn on their Chromebook, 10 seconds, they're logging themselves in, 30 seconds, they're up and running and already able to start working on whatever websites that you want them to be in. So I think this really gives the class direction and allows you to get started a lot faster than traditionally, okay, everyone go to this website, everyone's going to have, some people have issues. That hopefully is, eliminated if we're preloading all those pages for the students on the fly. But those aren't the only settings that we can set. There's so many options within here. We can't go through all of them, but some of the more important ones. This is really not critical, this proxy settings, because we have an internet filter. And correct me if I'm wrong, Kay, that is controlled at the base level of the connection itself, so we don't have to worry about inputting anything there. We can configure what the screen lock option is in terms of if a machine is idle, if a Chromebook is left sitting somewhere, is it set to automatically lock itself or not? We can change that. Policy refresh rate. This might be an important setting in that this tells the different Chromebooks within the that are all enrolled how much time it takes between periods when they're going to go ahead and phone home. So they're going to go ahead and ask. Right now it's set to 180 minutes. So every 180 minutes they're going to ask the Google Apps control panel, okay, have there been any changes to how I'm supposed to function? And it automatically goes ahead and applies that change, so when the student logs off, logs back in, they're going to go ahead and get that setting at that next period of time. And the policy for all these different security settings is also meant to go into play every time the Chromebook's turned off and turned back on, and logged in. So that it can go either way. It can go whether it's the number of minutes that have passed before it's supposed to phone home, or if the student has just turned off and is just logging in again via fresh boot. So I would recommend probably turning this down. It's set to 180 minutes by default. I'd probably do somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes.
So closing it turns it off. You don't necessarily have to exit and sign power off.
No, closing it by default just puts it to sleep.
Right.
If you sign off or you hold the power button down for about 4 or 5 seconds, that's considered a full log off, full shutdown.
Okay.
So that's one thing I would make the kids aware that just because you're closing your lid, I'm fairly certain that that's just putting it to sleep. And if they truly want to make sure they're logged off when they're putting it in the cart, they need to hold that power button.
And totally
powered off, correct.
Okay.
But I believe there's a setting where we can set it where when it is just lid closed, that it can do a log off as well. I believe I saw that setting within here. These are some more advanced features here. What kind of things we want to allow the browser to do. I wouldn't get too picky with that. Some more browser options in terms of autofilling, things that we probably don't need to be changing. Password manager, the kids can go ahead and have passwords saved for different websites they go to. I would leave that on. Actually, they have it turned off by default. I'm not certain why, because every user is their own account on the Chromebook, so those passwords are not shared.
Yeah, but if they remember passwords for them, the kids don't remember them, and then if they ever have to use another
Yes,
machine,
I agree with you there.
No idea what their password is.
Okay. And that's another setting that will be up to you guys. If this is that option, the options that we were at just a moment ago, you can specify what home page will be go ahead and can be set automatically. Either the kids can configure their home page, or you can go ahead and allow the district to go ahead and force that home page to go out. And that home page can be different for different classrooms. If you set up your organizations that way, where different classes have different home pages, or staff have different home pages from students. So that is definitely something that you all can think about and set up the way you want. Here's a limited capability to go ahead and block and allow certain websites. I wouldn't go ahead and use this as any kind of prime time filter. I would still say, Kay, it's probably best to keep controlling everything at the level that you are now. This is really more so for districts that have very limited internet in their district. They don't have any kind of great filter, and these are the first real mobile devices kids are using. You would probably control websites you don't want them going to, like YouTube obviously would be something you'd probably turn off, things like that, just to have some light control. But I wouldn't be putting any kind of mass.
What about when they take them home with the 3G?
That's what I'm wondering.
Then
It wouldn't go through our.
It wouldn't go through our filter.
Yeah, it's not. It would be totally unfiltered. Yeah.
However, how are you going to put all of them in there?
Well, you couldn't. You'd have to just whitelist them, wouldn't you? If you go on down, can't you whitelist where you only let them in certain?
Yeah. You can go ahead and turn on blacklist. You can put a star in and just blacklist everything, and just say what you want it is for them to access. But remember that that's going to be a management nightmare because you're going to be in there every day adding in websites that you need to be able to use. I wouldn't take that kind of approach. But if you want to,
if you're sending one home with a kid, you could do that for that device.
Well, like I said, if it's on their own Wi-Fi or 3G, I don't believe it's going to be controlled by that.
Even though
no. I'm wrong.
Yeah, because they're
logging in. You will be controlled. If they're
right
logging in, if they're forced to log in, if you turn guest off, if you turn the guest capability off,
and they
have to log in, it will be controlled. You are correct.
So you can put a star in the blacklist and then say they just want them to go to Animal Kingdom, whatever. You put that one in, that's the only place they're going to be able to go.
Definitely.
Cool.
Okay, so that is an option if you want to do that. Okay. Extensions, and we'll go over this in depth in just a moment, actually. But extensions and apps, we can go ahead and pre-install on the devices, and these are not traditional apps that we would think of in terms of Windows machines where we're putting a piece of software on the system. These are just web tools that are pre-populated on the Chromebooks that the students can go ahead and have access to right when they go ahead and launch their computers. On that home screen that I was showing, they'll then have that little app icon that shows for them. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how you can add in and pre-populate apps over here that can be pre-installed for the different devices. You can block as well. You can block certain plugins that you don't want kids using. I don't have any good examples right now, but for example, you can enter just by name. You can put in Chrome PDF for your review. You don't want kids viewing PDFs on their Chromebook. What reason, I don't know why, but you definitely could turn off these different plugins so they wouldn't be able to use them. Some different cookie settings, more security settings. This Omnibox search provider option here allows you to go ahead and specify how that Omnibox works. So by default, the Omnibox, which is pretty much, it's a goofy name, but Omnibox is just this little bar up here that controls the different websites that you go to. You could go ahead and use this to configure just one particular search engine that you wanted kids to be able to use. So for example, if you wanted kids to only be able to search, not the best example, but Wikipedia, if that was the kind of search engine you wanted the search bar to be using, you could specify that in this option here, and you could put it in Wikipedia and specify other settings that would allow it to just hit that search engine instead of using Google primarily.
I'm surprised they don't come with Google.
Oh, Google is set. Google is the default one.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying if, for example, if you wanted to use something other than Google,
okay.
yeah, because there's some situations where where you don't want to use Google, or maybe you want to use Yahoo or something else. I don't know why, but they give you the option to change that for yourself. The tab over here, device settings. There's just two options here actually, and they might be useful if you think about it. Guest mode, probably the biggest option. You can turn off guest mode. So if we set this here, everyone, next time they turn their Chromebook on, you would be missing that guest mode option. So this is a good way to ensure a little bit higher security on the devices, to ensure that the kids are logging in into their accounts instead of just going into that guest mode and browsing wherever they want to go. And you can even go a step further by restricting to just particular users. So say that maybe you just had a limited set of Chromebooks that are supposed to be used for between 2 classes of 60 different kids and a set of teachers. You would have to get all those usernames. You could pre-populate this field here, and only those people would be able to use the Chromebooks. So
once again, if you send it home and they've got a house full of kids, you can put that kid, and that's the only one that's going to be able to use it.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, here's the dangerous part of this. All the settings that are set here apply to everyone in the district. Everybody that has a Chromebook, all the Chromebooks are going to be affected by this. So you'd have to think about it in a much larger scale, in that everyone that has a Chromebook, who are all the people that are only able to get access to it. So might be a little bit of a management nightmare, but if you do need that kind of strict control over who's using the device, this is something that you have an option to use.
Be easier to pick who's not loud.
And just the two other tabs here, you're probably never going to go into these tabs ever again after the laptops or the Chromebooks are shipped. But they show you a nice little information in terms of if you have multiple sets of Chromebooks that are arriving for different classes, you can see when they were shipped, their tracking number, when they were sent out, in case there's any problems with the order. But the more useful tab over here, devices, this goes ahead and shows you the inventory of all the different devices we have here. Last time that unit was synced up with Google Apps, which means the last time it kind of phoned home. And it tells you when is the end date for support. So we see here that we just have a little under a year for the support on these devices. At that time, they're going to lose that management capability from within Google Apps unless your district decides to go ahead further with it. I'm going to skip this screen here because I'm going to show you in person here in terms of the extensions and apps and how this works. So the way that apps and extensions work from the Chrome, there's this Chrome Web Store. So this is a place where you can go ahead and, if you just, I believe, Google in Chrome Web Store, you can see all the different apps that are available. And Michael's going to be going into these later on today and in full depth tomorrow with the teachers to show you all the different things that we can install in these Chromebooks to have, so kids have access to them. But in terms of how these apps are managed, we have an option to go ahead and allow certain ones, we can block certain ones, and we can pre-install certain ones as well. So for example, some districts decide to use the wildcard of the star to block all of them and only allow certain apps to be used from the Chrome Web Store. So you don't want the kids on Angry Birds or all the different goofy games that are available in there. You might want to go ahead and block all of them by default, and then the teachers will go ahead and pluck out what it is that they want to use in the classroom, and the kids can then go ahead and install that for themselves. The problem is you can't pre-install anything that's been blocked. So if you block all, we lose the capability of pre-installing any apps or extensions for the kids. So that's the one kind of thing you'll have to pick and choose for yourselves. All right, I'm going to go back into I'm going to go back into the control panel really quickly here.
Are these apps specific to your account then? If you downloaded one, if you didn't pre-install on everybody's?
Yes, yes. So if you didn't have any kind of control over the kind of apps that are available here, and I'm going to go back into the Title 2 section here, and we're going to go over to our settings area here for the apps, for extensions, should I say. If you didn't have anything listed in here, yes, student can go in and install whatever games they want, and it would just be available to them. It wouldn't show up for other kids. It wouldn't show up for any teachers.
We'd never know either, would we?
You probably wouldn't. Yeah. So this is another part of the puzzle where you're going to have to pick and choose how much management control, how finite you want to get with the kind of settings that you're going to be putting into place here. For example, we put in, just for testing, Michael put in the technical term, it's called extension ID. He actually blocked Angry Birds. So kids right now, they try to log in, they couldn't play Angry Birds on the Chromebooks.
And how do you get what you put in
there?
I mean, can you just type Angry Birds?
I'm going to show you actually right now. And this is one of the things where I'm just like, couldn't you have made it easier, Google? All right, so we're going to jump into the Chrome. I'm just going to search for it. The Chrome Web Store here, and if you type it in just like I did, it'll bring you right to it. So it brought me right into it. It's a big place where you can find all these different apps for yourself. I'm just going to go ahead and search for something useful that we might want to have. Let's try to see if EasyBib is available.
DOM equation editor is a good one.
What was that?
DOM, D-A-U-M, equation editor.
Okay, there we go. So if you just wanted to add it to your device, you could go ahead and just click on Add to Chrome, and it would install it just for your particular device. But since we're interested in the management side of this, we're going to actually go into the listing for this app or this extension. And the part that we're interested in is this little part at the top of the end of the URL up here. So this goofy set of characters that has no particular meaning to anyone at all is what Google expects us to be able to find and put into the control panel to turn all these different apps and extensions on. So there will be a little bit of legwork that goes in if you really want to put a really hands-on approach to managing what apps and extensions get installed. But once it gets done, it's pretty much a set in stone kind of thing. You don't have to touch it after that. But So say we wanted to go ahead and allow this to pre-install for all the Chromebooks in the Title II section. So we're going to copy it. We're going to cut this little set of characters out. I'm going to go back into the control panel, and let me take off the blocking on Angry Birds. And I'm going to go ahead and put in a pre-installation for this equation editor. And here's another part of this goofy process. This is, again, where I asked Google, really? I'm going to go ahead and take off this last part here. So, for every different app or extension you want to pre-install, you need two pieces. You need to have the extension ID, paste it in, and then you have to have this goofy web address, which is pretty much, if you see, look right here, they show you in the example. So anything in the Chrome Web Store that you want to pre-install, you have to have that web address put after a little semicolon after the extension ID.
Is it ever different?
That web address should always be the same. The only reason I think they did this is because if there were any people that were making extensions that weren't hosted in the web store, if they were on some other server somewhere, this is how you would have to go ahead and put it in. So that's the only plausible reason I can think it's so difficult to do that.
Does it matter? You don't have to put it after that? You put what you...
You put the extension ID first, and then you put a semicolon, and then this web address.
Just like it says there.
Just like it says there. And then we want another one, we would just put a comma, put our next one in. Comma, next one. So you can see we're getting a lot of these listed out. You're going to be doing some hunting in terms of, what was that app that we pre-installed? Which one does this relate to? So,
however, whenever you rebuild one or something, that'll automatically come back.
What do you mean by rebuild?
I'm just thinking if you have to wipe one of these for what.
That's the nice part about it. No matter what,
it'll come back.
I can toss this in the river and get a new one. When I log in, all those apps are going to show up for me automatically. So that is the nice part. For the user, it becomes very seamless for them.
Right.
But for the management side, it's still a little difficult to do. And this is where I think that Google's really going to be putting some time and effort into making this cleaner, making it look as nice as the services we saw. Remember those nice little on-off buttons? Yeah. That's what I'm hoping they do. On-off. This on-off. It should be that easy.
Yeah,
I don't see why it has to be this hard, but that's what it is, and that's what you need to do to pre-install or block extensions for now.
What that was, I mean, you would have, yeah.
If you're just worried about allowing and blocking extensions, all you need is the extension ID. You don't need that goofy web address.
But then again, if you're sharing them between, say, junior high and high school, it would be a good way to put all your pre-installs under junior high.
Yes.
All your pre-installs
Yep, I do agree.
high school. And they could share tablets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, so
Cool.
blocking, allowing, only extension IDs. Pre-installing, you need that full string of the address plus the extension ID.
In other words, teachers get one shot, decide what they want, and that's it.
But this is also nice, as I said, if you give someone the ability to have access to the settings area within Google Apps,
Right.
they can manage this themselves then.
Yes, the teachers.
So tell the teachers, don't tell me what extensions and apps you want. You go in and handle it. Give them the power, make them the owners over what settings are available to them.
Yeah, Laura.
Okay, so we went over those already. Okay, our favorite topic, cloud print.
Yay.
So as I was saying earlier, not entirely feasible yet, but I did want to go over it in case you did feel inclined to want to try and get this working. Option 1, probably going to be the most plausible for you if you're going to be trying this at your district. I don't think you're going to want to go out and be purchasing new printers that have this capability. The majority of them are just inkjet printers. They don't have that many laser printers in this category, and the ones that do have it are not the cheapest units. So that's one thing of caution, I will say. But the easier option is option number 1 that I have here, Cloud Print via Windows PC that has Chrome loaded. So the basic way this works, I'm not going to go into too much of a demo because I don't see this being used very heavily, but the way it works is if you had a printer and you had it connected to a machine and you had Chrome open, there is an option in all the newest releases of Chrome. If you go into the wrench icon, there's an option within there It's either within that main wrench option or within the settings area within the what do they call it? Tools or options within there, where you can go ahead and it says Google Cloud Print. Sign into Google Cloud Print. So ideally, all you would do, you would sign in with your user account to that. You would just go ahead and click on the different printers that you'd want to share out with everyone. And what happens then is that, and here's the downside of Google Cloud Print, is that you then have to log in for the kids on all their devices. For the ones that you want to have them be able to print, you'd have to sign in with those credentials as well to establish their end of the connection. And this is where I don't see any easy way to get this done for a whole classroom of students on a consistent basis. Because I don't believe it keeps the login. You have to do it, I believe, each time when you go into the Chromebook.
So if you set up a computer with a printer and just make a universal login, or does it have to run through the teacher's Google?
Yes, if you did that, if you did make a universal login, you can do that. But then again, you have the security issue of having this universal login that's floating out in the open.
Right.
Two sides of the spectrum.
Right.
At our district, they don't like doing that. So we don't have any kind of open logins that are floating around any longer.
And you're doing this to get rid of printing.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
toner costs a fortune.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very true. So that is an option. And the other end of the spectrum is the Cloud Print Ready printers. Their Kodak, Epson, HP have multiple units that are available. There's not that many of them, but they're starting to become more prevalent. Where they actually build that functionality in right into the printer's control panel itself. So you sign in, you share it out, and then that can get pushed out to the student accounts on a more automatic basis. Yes?
With those cloud printers, how do they work with like a firewall or something? Certain ports or something you have to open? And then, you know?
I believe it all works over port 80, so I don't think it has any kind of firewall issues. It's very nice in that regard. But like I said, the selection is limited on these, and you have such nice printers already rolled out over here. I don't see, just to be able to get printing working, I don't see the feasibility of wasting all the money on new printers just to have that.
Can I go back one?
Sure.
I know so little about this Chrome web store, like Angry Birds.
Sure.
Are those apps all free?
Not all of them.
Okay.
There are some paid apps that are within there.
So if, for example, they identify a graphing calculator app that is, I'm just winging it here, but a graphing calculator app that Laura really wants in her class, you purchase the app.
And that is one thing I'm not 100% certain on. We'd probably have to ask Google, how does it work when you're pre-installing a paid app for a class of
We've been
kids?
through that on that Apple
Do you have to pay
stuff
for
on
one
iPads.
instance of every kid, or are you
we're
paying a
doing
licensing fee? I don't know how that
you know, like
works.
the books. We've got some English teachers wanting to get some books, and it's like, okay, how do we get those to each tablet? Where does that license lie if the tablet's lost?
Well, I know this is all in the cloud, so the license doesn't sit on any machine. It's just how does the publisher allow us to do that on such a mass scale?
And how does it,
So ideally, if we're preloading that on 60, 70, 80 machines, you know, do they want to get reimbursed for every single system that's accessing it?
Yes.
I don't know that answer. I think we need to ask that to Steve from
and
Google.
I would think they would.
No, they won't. No.
No. I know Apple's cracking down on it and on their whole iPads and the iPods. They have a very strict licensing model for how classrooms need to license out paid apps, and I think it's pretty similar on the Google side.
It's goofy.
Other than we're getting in early, so maybe we'll get some before they figure it out.
Are you guys rolling out iPads over here as well?
Are you doing iPads?
Yeah,
or,
iPads.
Oh, okay. No, we're doing Android tablets.
Oh.
Because
But it's sort of, I must admit, it's the honor. A lot of it is the honor system.
Does Google have
They
the
go through, you
iPad?
Purchase 60
Does
licenses,
what?
join
Does
in the
Google have
first
the
license, it's
iPad
goofy.
app? Because we're doing the mobile
What do you mean by
on our
iPad app?
on our Android tabs. We're using the mobile to kind of watch those. Just like this is the Chrome OS. We're using the mobile for our Androids.
Mm-hmm. And you're
And our
curious
app.
if they're doing what? If they're doing a similar kind of?
Is iPad? Does Google have? Is it the same?
Does Google have control for the iPads? No,
Yeah.
not at all.
That's what I
Not at
got.
all. Apple. I don't even know if there's an Apple. Tony, do you know of any management software that handles iPads? I don't know of any.
I was talking to a guy just the other day, and he said there are some available. I don't know the names of it or whatever, but they're working on it at least.
Because I know that was one of the big gripes. All the conferences I've been going to, and all the teachers are showing me, okay, this is, I go in on a Saturday, and I spend all my morning updating all my iPads, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't even want to think about trying to manage a set of
We're doing the
iPads.
Androids and running them through our mobile, so we're trying to figure out. So
Well,
it doesn't have quite this much.
And Apple's response is, these devices have only been out for 2 years, so we're still working.
Yeah, I know.
Because our mobile's following in line with this, so it's been kind of neat learning both at the same time.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what the iPads have, Tony, in terms of management, because I know that's always been the biggest gripe for iPads in the classroom. There's no easy way, as far as I know up till now, to take care of managing them. Just a final notes before we finish up, and we're pretty much on schedule for starting a timely lunch here. A few final things that I think just food for thought. What happens to the Chromebooks after the subscription period? So I saw on the control panel we have a 1-year subscription on all these devices that end about early November of 2012. As I said, unless you decide to extend them for that $5 a month per device, they're just going to be normal Chromebooks. No management, no control panel coverage. You're going to lose that capability of doing all those cool pre-installing extensions, blocking URLs, things like that. But they are your devices to keep. So if you decide not to extend, they're pretty much just regular Chromebook laptops for anyone to use. But kids can still log in with their accounts. I'm not saying they cannot log in. Right. I'm saying you just can't control them as nicely as you do right now. Can guest mode be disabled? Yes. As I showed, there is an option under the device settings to disable guest mode if you need to ratchet up that security a little bit. Downloaded files. If kids need to download anything really quickly, like say an email has an attachment that we just can't convert into Google Docs right on the fly, there's a small part of the laptop called a file shelf, and when you go into it, I don't have a screenshot of it right now, but I think Michael's going to have something on it. It'll just bring up, it'll be a tab, and you'll see pretty much a little thing that says file storage or file shelf, and it'll be like a temporary spot where kids can dump files in on a temporary basis. If I'm not mistaken, I think it clears out every time the laptop is fully closed. So, as I said when I started this presentation, kids should not be storing anything on the Chromebook. That's what we're trying to get away from. Put things up in the cloud, up on the internet, in the Google Docs, put it into a spreadsheet. Do not keep it on this laptop because it's going to be gone, ideally. How many usernames can be stored on the login screen? I know we were talking about this as well previously. I don't know what the official number is. It's unknown at this point, but it does start cleaning itself out after there's so many logins, and the oldest one is going to be flushed out automatically. But I hope they bring that option of just that clear blank login screen, because that would be ideal for a classroom. And how large are these updates? And I think I mentioned this, 300 megabytes to 1 gigabyte in size. No set schedule from Google, but for what they said, a few times a month. Who knows how often that's going to be. But that's something that we need to bring up.
As long as it's not as bad as Adobe.
In terms of support, probably not an issue just yet, but once these devices start getting rolled out on a heavier basis, if it's the support for the software side or the hardware side, non-3G issues, you go straight through the control panel. There's a support tab, actually, and I'll show, let me bring it right up for you. It's really nice because Google makes it really easy to find their support number. If you go into the support tab, they give you all the different options you have. They offer you online support, obviously. There are user forums. You can email them, or you can call them. And all you'll need when you contact them are these things here. Customer PIN and your support PIN. And what this allows you to do is, I made a call into this in a little while, but you're going to get to an agent. They're going to ask you for one or both pieces of information. You tell it to them, and you're going to get instant support for the devices or the software. They are very good in this regard. I have a lot of business clients that are on this product for business needs and things like that. Even our school district, we make calls into Google for support, and they're very responsive. So I must give them credit on that But if it's 3G, Verizon's where to go. And I know they've been a little goofy about not giving us information about that, but I did find out that if it is a 3G issue, anything with 3G accounts or 3G networking, Verizon's the one that handles that. I put the number in here, and I will share out this presentation so you'll have all this info as well. And that's pretty much it for the IT side of things. Any final questions? Anything lingering for anyone about managing these newfound devices?
You got it, Laura?
Can I ask you to look at mine for a second?
Sure, sure.
See, the way I get it is this has the most rights. Like the rights filter down and you can shut. So we've got our staff here. Presumably I need my staff to be here, put maybe my admin people under here, and then put my students underneath the staff. Like make them a sub
I wouldn't structure it like that because they're going to inherit then the rights
That's what
from
I
the
thought.
staff.
The
No,
rights
I wouldn't do that.
inherit down. So having them separate this way
Allows you to truly
gives
separate
me right.
those security
Okay,
settings.
because yeah, we did put our staff. We had to put ITV under our staff because we wanted their email to go with
I mean, I will say
outside of
this.
the building.
You could do that. You could have students under a staff sub-org. Would I do it? No, because you're going to forget
but the rights
which ones.
are inherited down.
You can choose not to have certain things inherit, but it gets messy. You can see it's going to get very messy.
So
if you
it's
do that.
easier just to keep them
Correct.
in the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And we did put them under staff because we want them to be able to email out
Correct.
the building.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. That looks like a perfect way to do it. Okay.
You guys doing in here?
I think everyone's clamoring to get some lunch now, so let's.
It's been smelling good for a while.
It's been tantalizing
Yeah,
us
I
for about
walked in and
15
I'm like,
minutes.
Wait till you guys get back to Cook County and you get to talk about how impressed